friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm really excited to share this Vlogmas video because, for Vlogmas we're doing book lists and we are talking about lists of books. Maybe we've read them, maybe we haven't, maybe we're more inspired to pick them up now that they are mentioned. But I'm also incorporating bookshelf tours with these Vlogmas videos, and today I am really excited because Patrice Jones is sharing her bookshelf with us. Patrice does not have her own booktube channel. Patrice, what are you waiting for? But she's a frequent commenter here on my channel as well as lots of other channels. She also is fantastic at doing buddy reads. If you've ever had an opportunity, a privilege to do a buddy read with Patrice, you know she does awesome at taking notes with the books that she's reading and sharing those notes with her buddy readers. And so it's fantastic. It's a really awesome opportunity to buddy read a book with Patrice. And today she's sharing one of her classics bookshelf with us. I think this is her TBR for next year. Next year she's reading classics, and so she's sharing her classics bookshelf with us. And I don't know how many of the books she's already read, but just scanning the pictures that she sent me, a lot of these are on my TBR. So it's interesting because before I received Patrice's video, not a video, it's a clip. Before I received Patrice's clip, I went through and actually made a list, an actual list. I've had this kind of mental TBR for a while, but I actually went through and wrote down some books. A lot of them are classics that I want to read next year. I don't own a lot of these books yet, but they are books that I want to read. Some of them are classics that I want to read next year. And so it is just appropriate that Patrice's list, Patrice's stack, also includes a lot of those books that I want to get to soon. And so maybe you haven't read them yet, but now you want to make a list. So we're going to cut to looking at Patrice's classics shelf and drooling over some of the copies that she has. So stay tuned for 35 books that are on Patrice's classics shelf. Coming at you for Vlogmas. We're making a book list and checking it twice. We're gonna find out who's been naughty or nice. Vlogmas is coming to town. It's Vlogmas, booktube style. On Patrice Jones's classic shelf, we are starting to the left with her Barnes & Noble classics. I own some of these books. I haven't read them all. First is Middlemarch by George Eliot, which I have not read, but it's on my TBR for next year. Next is the collected Oscar Wilde. I've read a few of Oscar Wilde's plays, but I haven't yet read the entire collection. So I'm going to give myself a half a star here because I've read some of them, and you go ahead and give yourself a half a star if you've read some Oscar Wilde, even if you haven't read his entire works. Next is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I have read. Emma by Jane Austen is next. I have read, I think. I've read all of Jane Austen's novels, but I'm not sure. Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky. I own a copy, but I haven't yet read it. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. I have not read. The Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas. I have not read. And The Count of Monte Cristo, also by Alexander Dumas. I have not read either of these, but they're both on my TBR for next year. Next is a bind-up of two of Richard Wright's novels, Native Son and Black Boy. Give yourself an individual point for each of them if you've read them both. If you've read one or the other, give yourself a point for that as well. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller, and I should mention I haven't read any of the Richard Wright novels, but they're both on my TBR for next year. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller is next. I haven't yet read it, but I plan to read it soon. Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, I have read. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, I have read. Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, I have read. Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, I have not read, but I hope to read that next year as well. The Streets by Anne Petrie, I have not read. The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chestnut, I have not read. Ain't I a Woman by Bell Hooks, I have not read any Bell Hooks. Mulebone by Zora Neale Hurston, I have not read. Strange Fruit by Lillian Smith, I have not read. David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, I have not read. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger is on my TBR this month, but I haven't yet read it. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. I feel like I know the story, but I haven't read the book. Let the Trumpets Sound, The Life of Martin Luther King Jr. by Stephen B. Oates. I have not read. Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens is a novel that I think I read when I was a teen, but I don't remember the story. I know generally what the story is about, but I haven't read the book recently enough to count it, so no. Dutchman and the Slave, plays by Leroy Jones, I have not read. The Life of Oladio Equiano, I have a copy somewhere, but I haven't yet read it. I will soon. The Garden Party by Catherine Mansfield, I have not read. Sanctuary by William Faulkner, I have not read. White Fang by Jack London, I have not read. The Pearl by John Steinbeck, I have read. I read this in high school. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, I have read, but I have not yet read Jamaica Inn by her. The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, I have not read. The Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, I have not read. And The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, I think I've read it. I know the story, but I plan to reread it next year just to be sure. So for now, I'm not giving myself a point for that. Well, 35 books, 36 possible points because I gave you a twofer with the Richard Wright bind-up. Out of those 36 possible points, I got 4.5. I hope you did better than I did. But in keeping with our tradition that we started yesterday, I'm going to show you some of the books that I do own, the ones that I've read and the ones that I haven't. So I own a copy of The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, written by himself. This is a pretty short book. I bought this at the library connected to the Harlem Public Library, County Cullen Library, and I read it in a sitting. It's just about 112 or so pages. These are books from my husband's bookshelf: Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, and Heart of Darkness with other selected short fiction by Joseph Conrad. I read Heart of Darkness in this one, but I haven't yet gotten to Uncle Tom's Cabin. That's on my TBR for next year. Also from my husband's bookshelf, he has a copy of Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens and a copy of Black Boy by Richard Wright. I would like to get to these next year. I'm just pulling books off his shelf and saying I'm going to read them, but not yet. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I read this a few years ago. Notes from the Underground by Theodore Dostoevsky. I have this as a bind-up with Dostoevsky and a novella, I suppose, by Leo Tolstoy. Would like to get to this next year. And The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I bought this beautiful cloth-bound copy when Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading was doing her read-along. And I've started this book a couple of times and didn't finish. So I do plan to get back to it and read it in its entirety next year. So of the 36 possible titles, I have access to 4 from my husband's bookshelf, and I own 4 others. So if I'd read all of these, my score would have been at least 8. But I didn't read all the books that I own, so my score is still 4.5. I hope you did better than me, but even if you didn't, we're going to inspire ourselves and we're going to be reading more in 2022. Many thanks again, Patrice, for sharing your bookshelf with us. Thank you so much for the inspiration, and all the best with your reading for next year. Let's chat in the comments. Would love to know what your score was and whether or not you're enjoying these daily book challenges, these daily book lists. Hope you are. Give this video a thumbs up if you are, and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss future videos. And we'll be back tomorrow with another Vlogmas video. Hope you'll be here for it. Until then, happy reading. Bye.